Bleeding and abandoned in the ravine, she believed it would be her end, until strong arms lifted her and intense eyes revealed unexpected care. Subscribe to the channel and discover how the impossible can flourish when the soul finds its true place. From an early age, Carolina Mendonça learned that certain things were forbidden. Loving a Kiowa man was one of them. The Sunday sermons in the small chapel of São Miguel do Pantanal, the books of conduct that her father kept zealously in the farm library, the advice whispered among women during the São João festivals, all repeated that indigenous blood carried savagery, that their beliefs defied God, that their eyes did not know how to love. Carolina grew up with these words engraved in her mind like stone commandments. And when the marriage to Ricardo, son of the region's largest landowner, was arranged by her father, she simply accepted, not out of love, but out of duty. For the 15 years she had lived under the noble wooden roof of the big house, for the sacrifices her mother had made to educate her as a society girl, for the debts her father had accumulated with the Albuquerque family. The marriage was a transaction she knew, but everyone called it destiny. On the eve of the ceremony, Carolina went out horseback, riding alone through the Pantanal floodplains, seeking to breathe away from the lace dresses, the whispered orders, the gazes that measured her every gesture. The low waters of the beginning of the dry season allowed her to venture on trails normally submerged. The freedom of that wild world attracted her like an ancient call that even she did not understand. The alligators resting on the banks barely moved with her passing. A white heron took flight when she approached a lagoon surrounded by coranda palms. It was there that the men found her, 3 farmhands who worked for rival landowners, with the smell of cachaça on their breath and eyes that did not hide their intentions. They tried to grab her, pull her from the mount. Carolina resisted, kicked, bit the hand that covered her mouth. When she managed to break free, she spurred the horse forcefully. The men pursued her. In the desperation of the escape, she took an unknown trail. She didn't see the ravine. The animal whinnied, trying to break, but the momentum was too great. Carolina felt her body fly through the air, then the impact against the water and mud. The pain was immediate, acute in her ankle, throbbing in her head. She managed to drag herself to the shore, where she fainted among the exposed roots of an immense jatobá tree. She woke up with the sun already low on the horizon. She tried to get up, but the pain kept her bound to the ground. She screamed for help, but only an owl's hoot responded. Her riding dress, once light blue, was now brown with mud. Her horse had disappeared. Carolina thought of Ricardo, of the wedding preparations, of her mother organizing the final details of the dress. Would they be looking for her? Night fell over the Pantanal, bringing with it the deafening chorus of frogs and crickets. The absolute darkness swallowed everything around, except for the red eyes of a predator watching her from afar. Carolina prayed. Not for salvation, but for the quick end she believed was inevitable. That's when she noticed the silent movement approaching. A human figure, without torches, without noise. Just a presence that materialized beside her, as if it had been born from the earth itself. It was a Kiowa man. Carolina recognized him by his strong features, by his straight black hair tied back, by the designs that marked his arms. She didn't scream. There were no strengths. She just watched as he knelt beside her and examined her wounds with gentle hands. He said something in his native language, words Carolina didn't understand, but whose tone conveyed calm. Then, with gestures, he asked if she could walk. Carolina shook her head. The man then lifted her in his arms with surprising delicacy for someone with such a strong body. He wrapped her in a blanket of woven fibers and carried her through the invisible paths of the Pantanal. How long did they walk? Carolina wouldn't know. The pain and exhaustion jumbled her perception. She remembered only fragments, the starry sky between tree canopies, the moonlight reflected in the waters of a lagoon, the distant singing of a jaguar. When they finally reached the destination, Carolina realized they were in a small village, hidden among gentle hills, protected by a dense forest of ipe and aroera trees. In the center, a fire kept the darkness away. Around it, huts of straw and wood formed a perfect circle. From one of them came an elderly woman with white hair and a face marked by time. She spoke quickly to her savior, who responded with few words. Tuita. That's how Carolina heard the woman call him, a name that sounded like the wind in the leaves. The old woman examined Carolina with eyes that seemed to see beyond the injured skin. She ran her wrinkled hands over the swollen ankle, murmured unknown words. Then, with Tuitin's help, she took Carolina into a larger hut, where herbs dried hanging from the ceiling and a soft mat covered the beaten earth floor. There they washed her wounds with warm water of sweet smell. They applied a bitter green poultice to her ankle. They gave her a dark liquid to drink that relieved the pain almost instantly. Carolina wanted to thank them, explain who she was, say that she needed to go back. But fatigue overcame her, and she plunged into a deep, dreamless sleep. When she woke up, the sun was already high. She was alone in the hut, but she could hear voices and laughter from outside. She tried to get up and discovered, surprised, that the pain had diminished considerably. She managed to sit up. That's when she noticed the child silently watching her from the entrance. A girl of approximately 5 years, with large curious eyes and a small white feather attached to her hair. "Hello?" Carolina said softly. The girl didn't answer, but approached with hesitant steps. She extended her small hand and touched Carolina's hair, marveling at the brown curls that fell over her shoulders. "Yasi?" Tuitin's deep voice appeared at the entrance of the hut. "Let our guest rest." The girl smiled, revealing the absence of a baby tooth, and ran outside. Tuitin entered, bringing with him a bowl of fresh water and a wooden plate with fruits. "You speak Portuguese," Carolina said, more as a statement than a question. "I learned from the missionaries when I was a child," he replied, placing the food beside her. "Before we understood that their words hid other intentions." There was bitterness in his voice, but no aggression. "I need to go back," Carolina said, feeling a lump in her throat. "My family must be worried." Tuitin observed her for a moment, as if evaluating the truth behind those words. "The rains have begun on the way to your farm. The river has risen. We will have to wait for the waters to go down." Carolina felt panic growing inside her. Her wedding, the guests, the shame that her disappearance would cause to the family. "How long?" she asked, trying to control the tremor in her voice. "Maybe 5 days. Maybe more. 5 days. Her wedding would be in 4. Ricardo's family would never accept the postponement. Her father would lose everything. "I can't wait," she said, trying to stand up completely. The dizziness made her stagger. Tuitin held her by the shoulders, preventing her fall. Their eyes met. There was a quiet strength in them that Carolina had never seen before. "Sometimes," he said softly, "the river changes its course for a reason only it knows." Carolina didn't understand the meaning of those words. But at that moment, with his firm hands on her shoulders and the smell of herbs in the air, she felt something different being born inside her. Something that had no name, but that made her heart beat in a rhythm unknown until then. Something that all the sermons of her childhood had warned to fear. Something that, for the first time in her life, made her feel truly alive. The following days were a revelation for Carolina. Accustomed to tight corsets and rigid rules of Pantanal society, she now discovered a world where gestures had more value than words, where time followed the rhythm of the sun and moon, not the imported wall clocks from Europe. Her ankle improved rapidly thanks to the care of the elder, whom Carolina discovered was called Nina, the village healer. Little Jatsi became her constant shadow, teaching her words in Kiowa between laughter and games. Tuitin maintained a respectful distance, appearing only to bring food or check on her recovery. But Carolina felt his gaze attentive and deep, even when he wasn't around. On the 3rd day, she managed to walk without pain. Nina smiled, satisfied with her recovery, and invited her with gestures to participate in the village activities. Carolina observed the women weaving baskets with colored fibers, the children learning to identify animal tracks, the men preparing bows and arrows with meticulous precision. Everything was done with purpose, with respect for the land that sustained them. When the sun began to set, Tuitin approached Carolina, who was sitting at the entrance of the hut, watching Yasi play with other children. "Come," he said simply. Carolina followed him, curious. They walked in silence along a narrow trail that serpentined between centennial trees. The birdsong accompanied them, mixing with the sound of running water that grew increasingly stronger. After a few minutes, the vegetation opened, revealing a small waterfall that fell between mossy rocks, forming a natural pool of crystal-clear waters. "It's beautiful," Carolina whispered, enchanted with the vision. Tuitin smiled, the first smile she had seen on his serious face. It is a sacred place for us, he explained. The water that falls from these rocks heals the body and cleanses the soul. Carolina felt an irresistible impulse to touch that water. She walked to the edge and dipped her hands. It was warm as if the sun had left its essence in it. "May I?" she asked, pointing to the pool. Tuitan nodded and turned his back, giving her privacy. Carolina took off the simple dress that Naina had lent her and entered the water wearing only her underskirt. The sensation was indescribable. It was as if each drop washed not only the dirt from her skin, but also the doubts from her mind. She dove completely, letting the water envelope her body, her hair, her face. When she emerged, she saw that Tuitan had retreated to the edge of the forest, where he patiently waited without looking in her direction. There was respect in his gesture, a respect that Carolina had never felt coming from the men of her society. Not even from Ricardo, who treated her as a valuable possession but never as an equal. She quickly dressed herself and walked to him, her wet hair dripping over her shoulders. "Thank you," she said, feeling that those words carried a much greater meaning than they appeared to. Tuitan looked at her with intensity. "Tomorrow the waters will begin to recede," he said. "In 2 days I can take you back." Carolina felt a tightness in her chest. 2 words formed in her mind. What if? But she swallowed them before they could escape her lips. Her wedding would be the next day. Her absence would have already caused scandal. Her father would be furious. Ricardo humiliated. But strangely, these thoughts now seemed distant, as if they belonged to another person, to another life. "Let's go back," she said finally. "It's getting dark." On the way back, they found Jassy, who was running breathlessly in their direction. Her eyes were wide with fear. In her native language, she spoke quickly to Tuitan, whose face transformed into a mask of concern. "What happened?" Carolina asked, alarmed. "White men," Tuitan replied, his voice tense. "They are near the village, armed." Carolina felt her blood freeze. "Ricardo," she murmured, "they must be looking for me." "No," Tuitan said, taking Jassy in his arms to calm her. "They are not looking for you. They are looking for us, for our territory. They have come before." Before Carolina could ask more, they heard a distant scream, followed by the unmistakable sound of a gunshot. Tuitan handed Jassy to Carolina. "Take her to the waterfall. Stay hidden until I return." Without waiting for a response, he ran toward the village. Carolina looked at the frightened girl in her arms. Her eyes begged for protection, for safety. "Let's go, little one," she whispered, turning to the trail that led to the waterfall. "I know a place where we'll be safe." Jassy clung to Carolina's neck as they ran along the increasingly dark trail. The sound of water approached, guiding them. When they reached the clearing, Carolina looked for a hiding place. She found a small natural cave formed by rocks behind the waterfall. "Here," she said, entering carefully, protecting Jassy's head. "No one will find us here." They sat on the damp floor of the cave, the curtain of water in front of them creating a natural protection. Jassy trembled, not from cold, but from fear. Carolina hugged her, trying to convey safety. "Everything will be fine," she murmured, praying that her words were true. The hours passed slowly. The sky darkened completely. The sounds of the forest changed, assuming the mysterious tone of the night. Jassy fell asleep in Carolina's arms, exhausted by fear and running. Carolina remained alert, each noise making her heart race. That's when she heard footsteps approaching. She held her breath, pulling Jassy closer to her. A silhouette appeared against the faint moonlight that filtered through the waterfall. "Carolina?" Tuitan's voice called her softly. "We're here," she responded, feeling a wave of relief so intense that tears came to her eyes. Tuitan entered the cave, kneeling before them. In the faint reflection of the moon through the water, Carolina saw a cut on his forehead, dried blood marking his face. "You're hurt," she said, extending her hand to touch the wound. He held her hand in the air, not with force but with firmness. "It's nothing," he said. "The men are gone, for now." "Who were they? What did they want?" Tuitan released her hand slowly. "They were men from the Albuquerque farm. You're—" He hesitated, looking for the right word. "Fiancé leads a group that wants our lands. They say the government signed papers, that all this now belongs to them. They came to mark trees to cut down, to open pasture for cattle." Carolina felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. The Albuquerque farm, Ricardo's family, the man she was supposed to marry in a few hours. It can't be, she murmured. Ricardo would never... But the certainty in her voice failed. What did she really know about Ricardo beyond his wealth and social position? How many times had she heard him talk about expanding the farmlands, about the need to civilize the Pantanal? Is Jassy okay? Tuita asked, changing the subject upon noticing Carolina's disturbance. Yes, she's just scared. Carolina looked at the girl asleep in her arms. Her face, even in sleep, still showed traces of fear. She lost her parents in the last attack, Tuita said softly. Naina has been raising her since then. Carolina felt tears in her eyes. She hugged JC more tightly, as if she could protect her from all the evil in the world. It's not fair, she whispered. This is not right, Tuita observed her with intensity. You speak like someone who sees with new eyes. Maybe I am, Carolina replied, surprising herself with the frankness. Everything they taught me about you were lies. They stayed silent for a moment, only the sound of falling water filling the space between them. Carolina had 1,000 questions, 1,000 confusions in her mind, but one certainty began to form in her heart, clear as the water of the waterfall. Can we go back to the village now? She finally asked. Tuita nodded. Yes, it's safe, but tomorrow. He didn't complete the phrase, but Carolina understood. Tomorrow would be the day she should return, the day she should get married, the day when 2 different lives awaited her, demanding a choice. Tuita picked up Hasi in his arms carefully so as not to wake her. Carolina followed him out of the cave. The full moon illuminated the clearing, transforming the waterfall into a curtain of liquid silver. It was a breathtaking vision, something she had never experienced in the big house, with its imported candelabras and its walls that separated man from nature. It's more beautiful at night, she commented, looking at the waterfall. Like many things in life, Tuita replied, his eyes meeting hers. True beauty only reveals itself when we are willing to look beyond the darkness. They walked back to the village under the starry sky, each step taking Carolina further from her past and closer to a decision that would change everything. She knew that at sunrise she would have to choose, and for the first time in her life she felt free to do so. The dawn brought with it the weight of the decision that Carolina could no longer postpone. Sitting at the entrance of the hut, she observed the village slowly awakening. Women lit fires, men prepared for the hunt. Children ran between the dwellings with the inexhaustible energy of youth. Jassy still slept, exhausted by the night of fear. Carolina observed her for a moment, her chest tight with a feeling of protection she had never experienced before. Naina approached, bringing a bowl with herbal tea. She sat beside Carolina without saying a word. Her eyes, framed by deep wrinkles, conveyed wisdom and understanding. Thank you, Carolina said, accepting the hot drink. The old woman smiled and, to Carolina's surprise, spoke in Portuguese with a strong accent. A divided heart does not beat right. Carolina looked at her, surprised not only by the words but by the fact that the woman understood her language. You, Naina laughed softly. I lived many moons, met many like you, learned your words to understand your ways. She took Carolina's hand between hers, rough from a lifetime of work. Today is your wedding day, isn't it? Carolina nodded, unable to hide her surprise. How do you know? The spirits speak. And Tuita too. There was humor in her eyes. He says he must take you back today, that the waters have receded enough. Carolina felt a lump in her throat. I don't know what to do, she confessed, the words escaping before she could contain them. Naina squeezed her hand. Yes, you do. You're just afraid. At that moment, Hasi woke up. Seeing Carolina, her face lit up with a smile. She ran to her, hugging her tightly. Good morning. Little one, Carolina said, feeling her heart warm with the contact. JC said something in her language, pointing to the forest. She wants to show you something, Naina translated. The flowers that were born after the rain. Now, Carolina asked, looking uncertainly at the horizon where the sun began to rise. Taita said we would leave soon. Time always exists to see beauty, the old woman replied enigmatically. Go, Tuita will understand. Jassy pulled Carolina's hand with insistence. Surrendering, Carolina followed the girl out of the village along the same path that led to the waterfall. But before getting there, Jassy diverted to an almost invisible trail between flowering bushes. They walked for a few minutes until they reached a small clearing where hundreds of purple flowers covered the ground like a carpet. "Ipes," Carolina murmured, recognizing the flowers that fell from the trees around. Jacy ran to the center of the clearing, spinning with open arms, making the flowers dance around her. Her crystalline laughter echoed among the trees, pure and free. Carolina felt something break inside her, a wall, a barrier that she didn't even know existed. In that moment, with sudden clarity, she knew what her heart had already decided days ago. When they returned to the village, Tuitin was waiting for her. He was dressed differently, with body paintings that Carolina had not seen before. Beside him, a painted horse, a magnificent animal that she recognized as being of the Pantanal breed. "It's time," he said simply. Carolina nodded. She knelt before Jacy, who seemed to feel the gravity of the moment. Her large eyes were full of unformulated questions. "I need to go," Carolina said softly, brushing a strand of hair from the girl's face. "But I'll come back to see more flowers with you." "I promise." Jacy hugged her tightly as if trying to prevent her from leaving. Carolina felt tears in her eyes as she gently disengaged herself. Nina approached, taking Jacy's hand. Her eyes met Carolina's with a silent understanding. "Go in peace," the old woman said, "and return when your heart commands." Carolina mounted the horse with Tuitin's help, who climbed up right behind her. The contact with his strong body caused a shiver that she didn't try to hide. They departed under the gazes of the entire village. Jacy ran after them for a few meters, until Nina called her back. The last image Carolina had was of the girl waving, a small purple flower in her raised hand like a promise. They rode in silence for hours. The Pantanal opened before them in all its wild magnitude. White herons took flight as they approached. A herd of capybaras crossed their path, disappearing into the dense vegetation. Carolina absorbed every detail, every color, every sound, as if seeing that landscape for the first time. "What are you thinking about?" Tuitin asked, breaking the silence. Carolina took a while to respond, organizing her thoughts. "About how I never really saw this place, even having lived here all my life." Tuitin remained silent, waiting for her to continue. "I always looked at the Pantanal as something to be tamed, controlled. That's what my father used to say, what everyone said. But now," she breathed deeply, feeling the humid air rich with life. "Now I see that it's us who need to learn to belong to it, not the other way around." Tuitin gently squeezed her waist, a gesture that said more than words. They arrived at a gentle hill that rose above the flooded plain. From there, Carolina could see in the distance the outline of her father's farm. The big house, the corral, the sheds, small white dots in the vast green. Further ahead, the Albuquerque lands extended as far as the eye could see. "Is that where I should leave you?" Tuitin asked, his voice neutral without revealing emotion. Carolina didn't answer immediately. She looked at the horizon, at the world that awaited her, a world of fine porcelains and empty conversations, of tight corsets and forced smiles, of a loveless marriage to a man who saw people and land only as possessions. "No," she said, finally turning to face him, "that's not where I belong." Something changed in Tuitin's face. A tension that Carolina hadn't noticed until then relaxed in his eyes. "Are you sure?" "Your people, my people," Carolina interrupted him, her voice firm. "Who are my people, Tuitin? Those who raised me to fear and hate what they don't understand, or those who showed me kindness and respect when I had nothing to offer?" Tuitin dismounted from the horse, offering his hand to help her down. They stood face to face, separated only by a palm's distance. "If you come back with me," he said seriously, "it won't be easy. Your fiancé won't give up, neither on you nor on our lands." "I'm not afraid," Carolina replied, feeling the truth of these words in every fiber of her being. "For the first time in my life, I know exactly what I want." Tuitin touched her face with delicacy, as if fearing she might break under his fingers. "And what do you want, Carolina?" "I want to be free," she answered, covering his hand with hers. "Free to choose my path. Free to love—" She hesitated, feeling her heart accelerate. "Free to love whom my heart has chosen." Tuitin leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull back if she wanted, but Carolina didn't pull back. She closed her eyes and felt his lips on hers, soft and warm like the Pantanal sun. It was her first true kiss, not the cold and formal touches she had exchanged with Ricardo during the engagement. but something born of genuine desire, of mutual respect, of the recognition of two souls that meet. When they separated, Carolina saw on the horizon a cloud of dust approaching, horsemen, many of them. "Ricardo," she whispered, recognizing the figure at the front of the group even at a distance. Tuitin followed her gaze. His body tensed instantly. "Let's go," he said, helping her to mount again. "I know a path they don't know." He spurred the horse, which set off at a gallop down the hillside toward a densely wooded stretch. Carolina clung to Tuitin's waist, her heart beating erratically, not from fear, she realized, surprised, but from excitement. From challenge, from life. They entered the dense forest, where the low branches forced them to constantly duck. The horse, accustomed to that terrain, moved with confidence between trunks and exposed roots. Behind them, Carolina could hear the distant shouts of the men. Orders being given, her name being called. "Do you know another way to the village?" she asked, worried. "We're not going to the village," Tuitin replied without slowing down. "It's not safe now. We're going to a place where they won't find us." "And Hasi? Naina? The others?" Tuitin hesitated before answering. "They'll be safe. They know how to hide when necessary. We've been doing this for generations." They rode for hours, deeper and deeper into the heart of the Pantanal. The forest gradually gave way to extensive flooded fields, where only the tops of the tallest trees emerged from the water, like green islands. The horse now advanced with water up to its chest, choosing invisible paths among the submerged vegetation. The sun was beginning to set when they finally reached dry land again, a natural island that rose a few meters above the flooded plain. In the center, an ancient construction of stone and wood camouflaged itself among centennial trees. "What is this place?" Carolina asked, amazed. "An ancient temple," Tuitin explained, helping her dismount, "built by the first Kiowa who inhabited these lands. Few know of its existence." Carolina observed the structure with reverence. Despite the time, the stones maintained delicate carvings, figures of animals, symbols she didn't recognize, stylized faces that seemed to observe her through the centuries. "Will we be safe here?" Tuitin nodded. "The water protects us. Only those who were born in the Pantanal know the way through the deep waters." They entered the temple. The interior was cool and surprisingly illuminated, thanks to strategic openings in the ceiling that let in the light of the sunset. In the center, a circle of smooth stones surrounded a depression in the floor where the remains of an ancient fire were visible. Tuitin quickly collected dry wood from a corner and skillfully lit the fire. The flame soon illuminated the space with an orange glow, projecting dancing shadows on the stone walls. "My father told me stories about this place," he said, sitting beside Carolina next to the fire. "He said that here the ancients gathered to make important decisions, to make choices that would affect the entire tribe." Carolina watched the flames, hypnotized by their eternal dance. "Like the choice I made today." Tuitin looked at her with intensity. "Are you sure of your choice, Carolina? You can still go back. You can still have the life that was destined for you." "Destined?" Carolina smiled, a smile sad and at the same time liberating. "Nothing was destined, Tuitin. Everything was imposed. Until I met you, until I met Hasi and Naina, I didn't even know I could choose." She extended her hand, touching his face with reverence, tracing with her fingers the strong lines of his jaw. "I choose to stay. I choose to learn your ways. I choose you." The kiss that followed was different from the first, deeper, more urgent, loaded with promises and possibilities. Carolina's hands explored Tuitin's broad shoulders, feeling under her fingers the body paintings, the firm muscles, the warm skin. He pulled her closer, enveloping her in an embrace that seemed to want to merge their bodies, their souls. When they separated, breathless, Carolina saw in his eyes the same desire that burned within her, a fire more intense than the one that crackled between them. "Tomorrow," Tuitin said, his voice hoarse with emotion, "we will face whatever comes together." Carolina nodded, resting her head on his chest, listening to the constant rhythm of his heart. Through the temple's natural window, she saw the first star appear in the darkening sky. It was the same star that shone over her father's farm, over the Albuquerque house, over the Kiowa village. The same light for worlds so different. And she had chosen hers. "Together," she repeated, feeling the word come to life on her lips like a sacred promise. Dawn arrived with the song of birds and the golden glow of the sun over the waters of the Pantanal. Carolina awoke in Tuitan's arms, feeling a peace she had never known. For a few moments they remained like this, just existing together in the silence of the ancient temple, as if the world outside could not reach them. But both knew they could not hide forever. "We need to return to the village," Tuita finally said. They left the temple for the blinding clarity of the Pantanal morning. Before mounting, Tuita drew 3 vertical lines on Carolina's forehead, then a circle on each of her cheeks. "Protection," he explained, "and belonging. Now you walk under the protection of the Kiowa spirits." Upon arriving at the village, they were received by sentinels. Ricardo was here, Tuita informed, his jaw tense. "With his men, looking for you." Jassy came running, throwing herself into Carolina's arms. Naina approached, her eyes evaluating Carolina. "You chose," she said. "I chose," Carolina confirmed. It was then that a messenger arrived, breathless. "Your father is very ill. Father Anselmo sent word that he asks to see you." Carolina felt the world spin. "I need to go," she said without hesitation. "I will go alone. This is a journey I need to make on my own." Tuita handed her an amulet. For protection, Carolina departed at dawn. She spotted the big house at dusk and was received by her mother, who seemed to have aged years in the last few weeks. "You came," Donna Elisa said, embracing her. "He has been calling for you day and night." Colonel Augusto Mendonça was reduced to a fragile figure in bed. "Carolina," he whispered. "So you came." "I am your daughter," she replied, holding his hand. "The Albuquerques are furious," her father revealed with difficulty. "Ricardo has sworn vengeance against you and the Indians. He has been gathering men, weapons." The old farmer reached for an envelope and handed it to Carolina. "The deed to the lands south of the river. Those that border the Kiowa lands. I am transferring these lands to you. They are the ones Ricardo most desires to expand his pastures." Carolina understood the meaning of that gesture. Her father was giving her power to protect the people she had chosen. "Thank you, Father," she said, moved. "I was hard on you," he admitted, "but now I see that you have found your own path, and that gives me peace." Carolina departed the following dawn after spending the night watching over her father's sleep. She rode back to the village with a new purpose. As she approached, she saw a terrifying scene, armed men surrounding the perimeter. In the center, Ricardo shouted orders, a rifle in his hands. "Stop!" Carolina shouted, galloping to the central clearing. Everyone turned to her, surprised. "Come to watch the spectacle," Ricardo mocked. "I'm about to solve the indigenous problem once and for all." Carolina dismounted, placing herself between Ricardo and the village, where Tuita and other warriors formed a protective barrier. "There will be no spectacle," she declared, showing the document, "unless you want to face the legal consequences of invading private property." Ricardo paled as he read the paper. "This changes nothing. Who's going to defend some Indians and a crazy woman in the middle of the Pantanal?" "No longer," a firm voice sounded. Father Anselmo approached, accompanied by 2 provincial guard officers. "The law is the law, Mr. Albuquerque, and the governor is particularly interested in ensuring it is upheld in this region." Ricardo departed furiously, his men following in silence. When they disappeared on the horizon, Tuita ran to Carolina, Jassy at his heels. The girl threw herself into her arms, crying with relief. "You came back," Tuita said, moved. "I promised, didn't I?" Carolina replied, smiling through tears. That night, under the stars of the Pantanal, Carolina sat with Tuita and Jassy by the fire. The child had fallen asleep in her lap. "What will we do with the lands?" Tuita asked. "We'll create something new. A school, perhaps. A place where Kiowa children and village children can learn together. Where prejudices can be undone." Tuita looked at her with admiration. "You see far, Carolina." "I see what is possible," she replied. "And the possible begins with choices like the one I made by staying here. By choosing you, by choosing to be a mother to Jassy." Tuita leaned in, kissing her softly. "We are a family now. A family built by choice, not by obligation." Carolina nodded, looking at the starry sky that stretched infinitely over the Pantanal. Under that immense sky, with Jassy asleep in her lap and Tuita by her side, Carolina knew she had found her true home. Not a place, but a feeling. Not a destiny, but a choice. The choice to love without reservations, to build bridges where others built walls. If you were moved by this journey of love and courage in the heart of the Brazilian Pantanal, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and share your impressions in the comments. Your words are like the waters that connect us through the stories we share.